We have with us today our guest, Mrs. Rachel Bagby, Senior Director of HR of Four Seasons Hotel Beirut. Mrs. Rachel has been in Four Seasons Hotels and Resorts since 1999 and 5 years in Four Seasons Beirut, and currently she's also holding a regional role in Europe, Middle East and Africa. She assisted in the pre-opening of Four Seasons Alexandria, Beirut, Moscow, St. Petersburg and Johannesburg. Thank you, Rachel, for giving us the opportunity to meet you today. We will discuss the topic of the work of women in Lebanon and in the Middle East. My first question for you, what are the employment challenges that females face in the workplace in Lebanon and in the Middle East? Can you give us some examples from your own experience and the experience of other women you know?
Yes, certainly. I think kind of one challenge that women face, and I don't think it's necessarily just an issue here in the Middle East, I think it's an issue globally, if I'm really honest with you, is that big decision of career and marriage and children. And, you know, being able to hold and give to both at the same time. I think no one wants to be a bad mother and nobody wants to be a bad professional. I think if I draw upon my experience in Alexandria first, when I was there for the pre-opening of the hotel and involved in the mass hiring for the property, and we had a real problem attracting women, and a lot of it was to do with the culture in Egypt, and the fact that there's a lot of very highly educated young women in Egypt. But from a family point of view, sadly their role is seen as to get married and to have children and not necessarily to have careers. And then we also found that certain positions were not approved by particularly the father in the family home as being an appropriate position for their daughter to do. I think, you know, particularly when I think about hotels, you know, in our restaurants we love, you know, to have, you know, there's nothing nicer than a lovely welcome from a lady who's a hostess in a beautiful, elegant uniform. But we had some challenges, particularly in Egypt, with fathers thinking that they didn't want their daughters to be hostesses, and had maybe slightly a different thought process of what a hostess was in a Four Seasons hotel. I mean, for us, it was very above board, it was a very important position and nothing seedy in that particular way. I think here in Lebanon, as you said, I was here in 2009 initially in Beirut. Was involved in setting up the management team, and then came back and did the pre-hiring of the employees before the opening. And again, I think in Lebanon, I would say it's less of a challenge. I do think we still have a little bit of a deep-rooted thing with the culture here, and the fact that, you know, again, there seems to be quite a social aspect for women here. There's a lot of women that are kept women, if you like, and they like to lunch and dinner and coffee with fellow ladies that don't work. But I think, you know, I think it's less of a problem here than it is in Egypt.
Rachel, what do you think that women can add to the society, to the workforce, and to the economy as a whole, if they are empowered in the workplace?
Gosh, where do you begin with an answer like this? You know, so much. I think, you know, we often forget that women actually hold dual roles, you know, particularly if they're a mother. You know, they run a family home, yes. And that in itself is a job, yeah. And if you think about the skills that are needed to run a family home, you know, women bring these skills and this experience to the workplace. There's always the joke about the fact that women can do more than one thing at once and a man can't, and it's, I have tested it many times with my team. I have 50-50 in my team. There's 50% women and 50% men. And it's true. It's just, physically, we're made up differently. And I think, particularly in the hospitality industry, women have that very warm and welcoming style about them, which is of a big need, in the hospitality industry. I think it's also interesting to look at where women spend their money as well. And I think, for a woman, the education of their children is extremely important. And they often use coming to work as a means to generate extra income to be able to really give the best to their children. And I think really then it's a cycle, isn't it? If women are educating their children, then we're going to have again a more highly educated workforce of women, and then we just really need to unleash this potential of these great women out there and give them as many opportunities as we can in work, in industry, but also give them opportunities to be entrepreneurial as well at the same time.
Thank you so much, Rachel. Thank you for giving us the opportunity. Thank you for everything.
It's been my absolute pleasure. Thank you so much for asking me. It's been a real honour.
Thank you.
I can talk purely from the angle of private sector in Kuwait. From my experience when it comes to attracting the talent and assessments of talent, especially new entries, females have a remarkable advantage over males. They always exceed expectations, and you get more females being assessed above average. In fact, to maintain the balance, there were times when I had to lower the standards for males, so I would have a 50-50.
Does it go back to the educational level of the females, or what does it go back to?
They are more committed and more serious and less dependent. The Kuwaiti male who is entering the job market for the first time feels that he can take it by street smarts, by contacts, whilst the females, they know that they have to take it on their own merits, which is quite remarkable.
Since you are an HR professional since a very long time, what do you think HR professionals should do to empower women in the next coming years?
It is not a question of empowerment. It's a question of allowing them the same level ground as everybody else. Make sure that you have the system. It ought to be transparent enough to everyone. The system itself should give the opportunity for everybody to compete. It should be as objective as it can be. I'm talking here about a talent management system rather than just it's a whole process. Anyway, when I was at Gulf Bank, I introduced a talent management strategy, and part of that was a system that identified potentials, and it was done in as much quantification as one can get.
So it generally depends on the business, otherwise it's considered to be as equal opportunity in Kuwait.
In my experience, yes.
Now getting back to what you believe women can add to the society, what do you think it can add to the workforce in general?
I don't think we should expect more from them than what we'd expect. They all of course strive to be equal, and as much as they would want to be equal, they will also make a contribution that is equal. Very much against this treatment of minorities. We ought to give them a special advantage to allow them to integrate and be a contributor and all of this. No, make everything available, equally, and just let them go and compete. Best to say that we have to do this. It's for that reason that we have a setback now in Kuwait.
Thank you so much for your time.